Savannah had carried life inside her belly for over 5 years, and still no child had come. Each morning she woke with the same heavy swell of her stomach, the same dull ache in her back, the same unanswered questions. Friends and neighbors whispered in secret, calling her cursed or unnatural, but Savannah only held her stomach with trembling hands and whispered to the son she had never met. Doctors had no real answers. They spoke of anomalies, of slowed development, of a body whose rhythm was stretched far beyond ordinary time. 10 years, one specialist muttered gravely. Your womb may hold him for 10 long years. The words haunted her. Yet amid the cold voices of science, one man stood as her anchor. Dr. Theodore. Tall, composed, and gentle-eyed, he carried himself with a confidence that seemed to melt her dread. He listened to her at appointments, not as though she were another case file, but as though she were a mother clinging to the edge of despair. At night, when the shadows grew heavier, Savannah would call him. She expected irritation, but he always answered, his voice warm and steady. Hours passed in those secret calls, her confessing fears of death and deformity, him soothing her with medical reason but also something softer, almost tender. A quiet bond grew, though neither spoke of it aloud. Still, deep within she knew, he was the only one she trusted to touch the secret locked in her womb. On a rain-lashed night, Savannah's voice broke on the line. Theodore, I can't do this anymore. He isn't moving as much. What if he's not alive? Please, please help me. Theodore hesitated, then revealed a truth he had guarded. There is a way, a new technology, but it's untested and dangerous. He explained, he could be shrunk down beyond comprehension to the size of atoms themselves. Once reduced, she could guide him into her body, through her belly button, and from there he would enter her womb. He would examine the child directly, repair what needed repair, and hasten his growth toward birth. Savannah's heart thundered. Inside me? You would go inside. Yes, he said calmly. But you must understand, the risks are great. My body might not withstand the contractions. If anything goes wrong, I might not return. For a long moment she said nothing, her tears falling soundlessly onto her swollen stomach. Then she whispered, voice trembling, do it. For him. For my son. The examination room was quiet except for the faint hum of Theodore's machines. Savannah sat on the edge of the bed, her swollen belly rising and falling as she tried to calm the storm inside her chest. She had not slept the night before. Her fingers trembled where they rested against her skin, as though she feared her body itself might rebel against what they were about to do. Theodore stood before her, adjusting the silver suit that clung to his body like a second skin. It shimmered faintly with veins of light. Each thread looked alive with technology designed to keep him intact when he was smaller than dust. He tightened the clasps with steady hands, but his eyes betrayed the gravity of what he was about to risk. Savannah, he said softly, kneeling to her level. His voice carried no hesitation, only the warmth she had come to depend on in sleepless nights. I need you to remember that I've studied your body for years. I know every rhythm of your heart, every quiver of your womb. You're not sending me into the unknown. You're sending me into a place I already understand, only deeper. Literally. Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, yet fear churned inside her like cold water. But what if you don't come back out? Theodore placed a gloved hand gently on her belly. The gesture was intimate, more than clinical, and she felt herself soften despite the panic clawing at her. If that happens, he whispered, then let my last act be to bring your son into the world. That's enough for me. Her breath caught. For a long moment she could not speak. Then with a trembling nod she whispered, I'm ready. He activated the shrinking device strapped to his chest. His body shimmered, folding inward on itself like a reflection disappearing into a ripple. Savannah gasped as he dwindled smaller and smaller, the air around him vibrating with strange energy, until he stood no taller than her fingertip. She cupped her hands around him instinctively, afraid he might fall through the cracks of the world. Now, Theodore's tiny voice echoed faintly through the communicator. Press me to your navel. Gently. Savannah hesitated. Her belly button felt suddenly like a gateway, mysterious and alive. Her palms were slick with sweat as she lifted him, her heart thundering. She pressed him lightly against the soft hollow of her navel, but the moment she felt the faint tug of suction, fear overwhelmed her. She pulled back, shaking her head violently. I can't. It feels wrong, she stammered, her eyes brimming with tears. Theodore's tiny laugh floated up, warm and teasing despite the dire moment. You're holding back. Don't be afraid of yourself. Here, let me help. And then she felt him. All his tiny movements, quick and playful, as he wriggled against the sensitive skin of her belly button. Savannah gasped, then let out a startled laugh. He wiggled harder, darting side to side, and she burst into helpless giggles, her body convulsing with uncontrollable laughter. Theodore, she cried between gasps, clutching her stomach. Good, he chuckled. That laughter is your body letting go. Let it carry me inside. Her giggles grew wild, shaking her whole frame until tears pricked her eyes. Her belly contracted sharply with each convulsion, and the suction at her navel deepened. She tried to protest, but another burst of laughter made her double over. Suddenly, the muscles around her belly button clenched, and with a wet pull, Theodore was sucked inward. Savannah gasped, pressing both hands to her stomach as though she could still catch him. The sensation was strange, like a string being pulled deep inside her, vanishing into her core. Inside, Theodore tumbled down the tunnel of Savannah. The walls pulsed, guiding him deeper inside of her. Darkness pressed from all sides, yet the communicator in his suit translated the movements of her body into a living map. Every contraction, every quiver of muscle, was responding to the communicator in his suit. He whispered into the communicator, knowing she would hear. I'm here, Savannah. Don't be afraid. Your body welcomed me in. Now it will guide me to him. Savannah closed her eyes, clutching her belly with both hands. For the first time in years, she felt something other than stillness. She felt movement, purpose, as though both doctor and child were working together inside her to give her pleasure. Her heart swelled with both fear and fragile hope. His womb sent waves of pleasure throughout her body. As the contractions intensified, Savannah moaned, her body tense with anticipation and pain. Unbeknownst to her, with each wave of agony, Theodore's touch sent waves of pleasure coursing through her womb, building to a crescendo. Doctor, she cried out, hands grasping at the sheets as her body began to tremble. What's happening? Theodore quickly took note of her reaction. It's nothing, my dear, he assured her, though his own excitement was palpable. Just the baby's movements. It's perfectly natural. But as the contractions grew stronger, the doctor's ministration sent Savannah spiraling into a maelstrom of bliss. Her eyes glazed over, breath coming in ragged gasps as her body thrummed with pleasure. Savannah, focus. Theodore commanded, his own voice strained with the effort of maintaining control. You must hold back these feelings, let the contractions take their course. We can't have you climaxing so soon. The words barely registered through the haze of ecstasy swirling within her. All Savannah could do was cling to Theodore's reassuring presence, her mind consumed by the sensation of his touch igniting a fire deep within her core. Theodore pressed onward, deeper into her womb. His descent ended with a sudden weightlessness. Theodore tumbled through warm fluid before stabilizing himself. Her veins shimmered beneath the tissue, glowing blue and violet. Droplets of amniotic fluid floated onto his suit and scattering around it. Savannah, Theodore whispered, your body is magnificent. Savannah heard his voice through the communicator. Her lips parted as her chest swelled with something close to pride. And then Theodore finally saw him, the unborn boy. Suspended in the center of the chamber, the unborn child floated with closed eyelids. His limbs were curled with his tiny fists clenched. Theodore drifted closer, and for a moment his professional mask faltered. He had delivered countless infants in his career, had measured heartbeats and watched first breaths, but never had he met a child this way, suspended in timeless sleep, cradled by his mother's loving womb. He extended a gloved hand and touched the boy's chest. He felt a faint flutter of a weak but steady heart. I can feel his heart beat, Theodore whispered. His throat tightened. Savannah, he's healthy. A sob of relief tore from Savannah's lips. She clutched her belly, tears sliding down her cheeks. Oh, thank God, my boy. Theodore steadied himself and unfolded his instruments. Delicate beams of light scanned the child, mapping his lungs, his heart, the fine webs of nerves. The readings told a story he had suspected. Time had slowed her womb. He's been waiting all these years, Theodore murmured, more to himself than the machines. And so Theodore worked. He touched the boy's chest with a beam of energy, coaxing the lungs to expand. He passed light over the heart, watching its beat grow stronger. He guided the boy's muscles in preparation for birth. Each adjustment sent ripples of pleasure through Savannah's womb. The walls flexed and contracted as her body responded to Theodore's touch. Savannah gasped outside, pressing her palms to her belly as she felt her son move. "Doctor, what are you doing to me?" she gasped with ecstatic joy breaking her voice. "Theodore." Theodore smiled, though exhaustion was creeping into his bones. The boy moved around more now. Theodore leaned closer, lowering his voice to a whisper meant only for the child. "Your mother loves you more than life. I will guide you out of her safely." But then the communicator buzzed. Savannah asked, "Theodore, is it time? Is he ready?" Theodore looked back at the boy. "Yes," Theodore said. "It's time. Savannah, prepare yourself. Push when more contractions come." He secured his instruments, bracing himself. Theodore could feel the chamber tightening as the first ripples were about to come. He pressed his hand once more to the boy's chest. "You're ready now. Soon you'll meet her." The walls shuddered violently. Theodore knew the struggle was about to begin. The amniotic fluid tossed him helplessly, slamming him against the fleshy walls. Savannah groaned. Her body was entering the labor she had feared and longed for. Theodore felt it all from within. Her body had shifted from protector to expeller, and now he was trapped in the storm meant to deliver life. He clenched his jaw, fighting the panic that threatened to consume him. "I must get out. I must survive, for Savannah, for the boy." He spotted the passage. It was the narrowing birth canal. Gritting his teeth, Theodore propelled himself toward it, using the last of his instruments as a jet, bursting against the liquid currents. For a moment he believed he might make it. The tunnel opened just enough for him to glimpse the light beyond. But then the contraction hit. Savannah's walls clenched with unstoppable force, slamming him again sideways into the ridges. Sharp searing pain exploded across his ribs. He heard the crack of bone inside his chest. His breath tore from him in a ragged gasp. He could see bubbles spiraling upward in the fluid. He curled up, clutching his side. His vision was becoming blurred. The contraction eased for a second, but the tunnel had sealed again. He drifted backward, trembling. His chest was aching with every shallow breath as his rib dug into his lungs with every inhale. But Theodore refused to surrender. He adjusted his broken tools into a propeller-like blade and thrusted himself once more toward the canal. Each kick of the machine pushed him forward, closer and closer. The womb responded. Another contraction surged, even stronger this time. Theodore slid through the tunnel just as the tunnel squeezed shut, barely making it past the closing. The pressure was unbearable. His arm was pinned at an unnatural angle as the bones grinded together as he moved. Then, with a sickening snap, his shoulder shattered. A scream tore from his lips. But the sound was muffled in the fluid as his body twisting in agony. The walls did not relent. They pressed harder, crushing his chest, forcing the air from his lungs. His vision blackened at the edges. He desperately clawed at the walls as his fingernails broke against the flesh. "This is what birth feels like," he thought, delirious, "and I am on the wrong side of it." When the contraction released, he drifted limply back into the chamber, gasping for a quick breath. His shoulder was now useless. He looked down at the blood swirling faintly around him. His body trembled with pain as he tried to catch his breath. Each attempt was draining what little strength remained in his breaking body. Desperation drove him. Theodore's eyes fell once more on the boy's body pressing instinctively toward the birth canal. The doctor felt a surge of wild hope. If he could cling to the child, perhaps the contractions would carry them both outward. He could ride the tide of birth itself. With his one good arm, he dragged himself to the boy and wrapped his trembling body around him. The child twitched with his touch. Theodore gritted his teeth. "Yes, take me with you. We'll leave together. I'll see him safe into the world." And then the next contraction struck. It was not gentle. It was a cataclysm. The child was propelled forward, his body sliding down the passage with irresistible force. But Theodore was not meant to fit there. His body was torn away, flung backward by the crushing muscle. His arm was nearly ripped from its socket. He screamed as agony ripping through every nerve. He slammed into the wall once more. Upon opening his eyes, his vision was going white. His lungs burned, his ribs hindered his breath. He tried to move, but his limbs no longer obeyed. His communicator suit was damaged beyond repair. There was no communication with Savannah at this point. The child moved toward the light, but Theodore remained behind. The contractions continued to pound his failing body. And in that haze of agony, clarity came. You would not survive, but the child would. Theodore's thoughts turned to the boy. "You will live. Savannah will hold him. And I will have done my job as a doctor." The chamber shook again, and Theodore cried out as pain seared his body. But beneath the agony, he smiled faintly. His life would end here, beneath the beating heart of the woman who had trusted him. And her son would take his first breath soon enough. Savannah screamed in labor. Sweat drenched her face as she bore down. Then, with one last, shattering contraction, the child slid into the world. A wail filled the room. It was the sound of her son's first breath. Savannah reached out, sobbing, pulling the slippery, crying infant to her chest. He was alive. He was beautiful. But then she saw it. Clinging to the child's cheek was a scrap of silver fabric from Theodore's uniform. Her heart stopped. She understood instantly. Tears poured down her face, grief and joy entwined in cruel harmony. She kissed her son's forehead, whispering, "Your name will be Theodore, for the man who gave his life so you could be born." The boy, much larger than a baby, nestled against her chest, tiny hands grasping weakly at Savannah's bare supple breast. Savannah rocked him gently as she continued to sob and mourn the death of her favorite doctor. And though Dr. Theodore was gone, his sacrifice lived on in her newborn son, in the life he had delivered into her arms.